Welcome to a very special RTV Warriors interview in our continuing interview series. Michael is not here today, but better than that, I am joined by the only guy at the chef's table who can say he has kissed Fat Maria sober, Alex Boylan.
What's up?
Not much.
How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. How are you?
All right. I'm good.
And usually with our interview intros, we typically dip into a pretty obscure reference to the point that some of the racers don't really remember. But do you have any memories of Fat Maria from your time on The Amazing Race?
Okay, so you know what's funny? When you said that, you said the only person at the table. I used to host a show called At the Chef's Table about 15 years ago. So I thought you were making a reference to that. And then all of a sudden it's Fat Maria. So I think I did, because I think we kissed a tree named Fat Maria in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, an island off Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Is that correct?
It was a reference to both things. I did mention the chef's table
Wow.
and Fat Maria.
Nice. All right, so I nailed it.
Yes, absolutely.
2 for 2. All right, I'll take it.
We had Eric Sanchez from season 9/11 a few weeks ago, where we referenced one of his scenes, and he was confused for a minute. Then the memory started flooding back to him the more we progressed throughout the podcast.
Okay, cool. I like it. Eric, I know Eric used to live out here in LA, so we used to play volleyball together. So good guy.
Yeah, pretty rad. Yeah, he still holds the record for, I guess ties the record for crossing the Amazing Race finish line twice.
That's impressive. That's a pretty awesome record. I wish I could say I've done that. I was only given one shot though, so it's not a really fair fight.
You were never approached for season 31 for next season, where they're doing All-Stars from the Amazing Race and the other two CBS reality shows?
Nope. And I know the casting director, we all do, but director well. No, if they wanted Chris and I, they know where to find us.
Yeah, you guys probably aren't too difficult to find nowadays.
No, that was a long time ago. It'd be a trip. I would do it though if they were like, "We want you back." But I don't think Chris and I make great TV. That's the most, I think I think that the show has changed a lot when there's no Chris and I didn't have drama. We raced. It was a great, awesome experience, and it was a great, awesome experience. I sound like I can't even speak. It was an amazing experience, but I'm glad we did it early on, because that was when, racers could race. It was not as many equalizers. So being a 2-guy, young, athletic, 2 people that traveled the world, you had an advantage. So I think I'm glad we got in when we did.
I know Chris isn't quite out there on TV as much as you have been over the past 15 years. Would he agree to do the race again?
I mean, he's got a wife and kids. I can't imagine he would say no, because he runs his own business, so he could finagle that. And I can't imagine his wife not wanting him to go. So I bet he would. Yeah, I bet he would. We haven't talked about it, but I can't imagine he wouldn't do it.
It would be like when those old school bands sort of get together for a reunion 15 or 20 years later and get to play together again.
Yeah, it would be well, it's funny because, Chris and I go back to kindergarten together, and he's still, one of my best friends, but we don't, I live in LA. He lives in Jacksonville, Florida. We still see each other a couple times a year, but it would definitely be probably more interesting to watch us, in our early 40s now, trying to race around the world. That's for sure.
Does Chris still have the same pair of jeans that it seemed like he wore in every episode during your guys' season?
I know. I bet we only had a pair of pants each, maybe 2. So that's funny that I never even thought about that. But he quite possibly. Chris is a very simple man, right? And so he's not. I could picture him probably still having those jeans, and I could still picture him being like, "What do I need 4 or 5 pairs of jeans for? That just makes things complicated."
Weighs you down.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I was just reading a couple days ago that you guys would actually find a way to pack lighter for the next time if you were to be on the race again.
Yeah, I mean, if it was, I mean, I think, and I I should know this answer. I don't know how people pack now, but for sure, I'd almost have like a day pack. Yeah, I mean, especially with like the microfiber material nowadays. Yeah, I mean, I mean, we had like full on backpacks. I mean, we were a little smaller than season one. I mean, those guys were packed. Season one, they were like packing tents sometimes because they didn't know what they were getting into, right? And then they started shedding.
There's no template.
Yeah, they didn't know. At least we knew that. So, but we still had, you still had to you check your backpack. It was that big. Once in a while, you might be able to bring on a plane. So I think that was the, for sure this thing would 100% never be checked. So yeah, I'd be much lighter.
And if another team were to bring it onto a plane, then you and Chris could just find a way to delay the plane to make things inconvenient for the other team.
Yeah, I'm sure we'd have a few things up our sleeves to make things, put things in our advantage.
And for footwear, would you be packing a pair of Tom's shoes while on the race?
Wow, these are great. First of all, these are great questions. I would want to support Blake from my season, and it's unbelievable what he has done with that company. But no, I probably wouldn't unless he was like, I might be like, I'd support him by putting my tag on like a pair of Nikes, but I'd have a pair of running shoes.
So I was reading through your casting story, like in newer seasons for all these CBS reality shows, a lot of the casting stories are this video went viral. We know this one casting director or a casting director overheard us in a restaurant and approached us. Back then, you guys, it would have been such a small community that you wouldn't have those stories back then. And you guys had quite the casting story for how you got on the show.
Yeah. I mean, it was just an interesting time of life. First of all, there wasn't, we found out we were going on The Amazing Race when the first episode premiered. So we still were applying to something, we didn't know what it was. Right. So much different, obviously, the world is today with all the reality shows and everything. So, yeah, I mean, to back up, I mean, I had just quit my job a year before that in Boston. I'd been bartending in the Caribbean. Chris had just graduated from Clemson. So we were both home in Boston, and we were trying to we were just kind of like, what are we going to do next? And I told him, I'm like, I'm not going back, because prior to bartending, I was like working as a marketing analyst at this company in Boston. I was like, I'm not going back to that cubicle crunching numbers. I'll tell you that 100%. And Chris was like this double engineering degree. And anyway, we were just like having fun in Boston during the summer, working who knows what types of, whatever weekend jobs to just, survive. And I literally saw, like, you remember old pop-ups on your computer, right? And so
as much ad
pop-up
blocker as you can use.
Yeah. And so I mean, back then it was just like something came out. I was like, oh, Race Around the World. I was like, but Survivor had come out. So the first season of Survivor had come out. And I remember being like that's the first time I watched TV. I was like, that's awesome. So that was the only kind of gauge you had for reality television. And then it was like Race Around the World. And, I'd been fortunate to travel the world a lot as a kid growing up. And Chris and I mean, this is like so old school that we went outside. I grabbed my little sister, and we had like a VHS like camcorder, and just started rolling on why we wanted to go Race Around the World. And I remember the casting people, when we eventually, they were like, it's funny, we couldn't even see you guys. You guys were outside. It was dark. It was like evening time. And, they took us to they invited us to, go to the first interview based on just our banter back and forth. But yeah, so it was out of nowhere, that we heard about it, shot a fun video, didn't even think much about it, FedExed that video, and back to CBS and forgot about it. And then at that point, we were backpacking Europe, like maybe a month or two later. I totally forgot about it, didn't think much about it at all. And my parents were in this place in Switzerland, and I was like, I'm going to go swing by and see my parents. They'd been there for like a month. And so Chris and I just swung in to see my parents while we're backpacking all around. And the phone rings one night, and we're playing cards, and we're in like the middle of nowhere. And we're playing cards. And my mom's like, I don't think I've ever heard the phone ring since I've been here. And I'm like, no way. And it was, CBS had, tracked us down and wanted us to, come to the first interview. And so Chris and I, shut that trip down quickly and went to New York. But it's crazy because that's before cell phones. So if I was only of the whole, 2-month trip that we were about to embark on, I'm maybe day 4 or 5 into this trip, no cell phone, no way to get a hold of anybody. And I just happened to say, you know what, I'm going to swing through and see my parents real quick. And I was planning on being there for maybe 48 hours. And then we were going to take off. And it just happened to be when we were there, they got a hold of us, and that phone rang. So if not, I don't know. No one would have found us. We didn't know where we were going. So, yeah.
Yeah, so
crazy.
So much tougher back then. Like now when I apply for Amazing Race Canada or Big Brother Canada, they give you the option to just record off of your computer with you and your partner or be able to use smartphones. And it only takes me a couple hours to edit it and put it together and just, email it, just submit it online. You don't do physical copies anymore. So it's crazy that, the FedEx it and use a VHS camcorder and the casting agents have to be forgiving with the lighting.
Oh, totally. Totally different world, for sure.
I was telling one of the other people that we interviewed a few days ago that I recorded the first 14 seasons of Amazing Race and Survivor and Simpsons and stuff on VHS tapes. So I still keep those tapes just for the nostalgia sake. I don't think I've used the VCR in several years, but it's kind of funny to have like season 2 wedged in between Simpsons and Futurama.
That's funny. Yeah, for sure. Different times.
So, do you remember much about that whole starting line and the whole sequester process leading up to the start of the race?
Every part of the race, I pretty much remember. It is almost 20 years ago, but I do remember it like it was yesterday. So yeah, fire off. I think I remember. Do you have questions about it?
Yeah, like how long? Because I know it differs between the seasons now. Where now newer seasons they don't give you any fake out visas for countries you might go to, but you don't actually end up going to. Do they give you any fake out visas once you started the race?
Honestly, it's a great question. I don't remember getting our passports. Yeah, when we started, they took our passports. So, yeah, but at some point in time, I would have to see that. Yeah, I think we submitted, I don't know this, and I'd have to double check with someone else, but I think we sent in our passports. I don't know if I ever saw that passport again because we were, flown into the desert of Vegas. And we had to kind of run to our cars and our backpacks. I think it was there. I don't know. That's a great question. This is a great question. I don't remember seeing much about. I don't remember ever talking to Chris beforehand, like, "Oh man, we're going to Brazil," and that was our first destination. And I used to live in Brazil, so I sure would have had that conversation if I knew I was going to Brazil before or I saw that in the passport. I can't imagine I wouldn't be telling Chris like, "Oh, I speak Portuguese. We're going to be good." Like whatever. I don't remember ever having that. So I don't think we ever knew until we opened up. I think there was this little pouch that was in our backpack. Have you ever talked to anyone on season 2? We have to confirm this. I don't know.
I think I asked Danny Oswald like one question back when this would have been like 10 years ago where I was rewatching, I think, All Stars, but nothing directly about season 2. I was rewatching All Stars. And I'm like, I'm going to look up Danny on Facebook. See if he'll respond to a question from a random 16-year-old Canadian at the time.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's a great question. I don't remember ever thinking that I knew prior to it. And part of me, and I don't know, but like, I never really was thinking, I don't remember ever knowing prior to, but it makes sense, right? You'd have to have these, and I don't know. I had to go through the whole countries. And I just don't remember like thinking too much of like looking at my passport saying, oh wow, we're going here, 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 or here. And I 100% would have. If I was holding my passport and I was looking at a bunch of visas, I would have been having that conversation, and I just don't remember having it. So maybe we were going to countries. I mean, part of me even thinks, was it pit stops beforehand that they were getting us into? That is such a good question. I don't know the answer. Huh. Yeah, I played for Kempenesi, a soccer team down there, my junior year of high school. So, yeah, I lived down there, went to school down there and everything. Yeah. It's funny. I say the older I get, the more I appreciate the upbringing I had of parents. Because my dad is a pastor, retired now, but was a pastor. And, so I grew up traveling the world, helping the needy wherever we go, working with missionaries. Right. And, so I had a great look at the world as a kid, but yeah, they never, I remember I had this opportunity. They were going to put me in a school down there. I lived with a host family down there, but, yeah, they didn't think, they sent me off. I remember having $600 in my pocket cash, and my parents would say, we'll see you in a bit. And I remember they called me once a month because back then phone calls were expensive. So, I was in the Northeast, yeah, it was, and a lot of people ask that question. A lot of people say that, and I'm like, yeah, my parents would take off when I was starting in like 7th grade. They'd be gone for the summer on this island for like a month or so, and they would leave me with an envelope of cash. And I was like playing soccer, and friends' parents would pick me up and bring me back. I had a job. I'd ride my bike too. Like my parents were full on. Yeah. And I remember people thinking this is crazy, but if anything, they definitely raised us, all the kids, with a lot of freedom, and you're going to skin your knees, but better to prep you to, survive. So we were not sheltered as kids. It wasn't like we were abandoned. My parents were very loving and awesome, so I never want them to think like that. But they definitely were not like scared of you going off into the world and experience something. And did that start at a young age, for sure.
Yeah, they didn't promote to have a fear of the world like a lot of other parents would when their kids start to.
Yeah, and I think in general they were definitely, because they traveled, right? And so they just knew. And yeah, so I think they know the power of those experiences and what they can have on children. So I think take that with compounding faith and knowing that, whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen to a certain degree. And they also wasn't like I was like a young kid running around wherever I want. They knew I was going to be like living with a family, and, there's going to be people, who have my back when needed. But yeah, they were. And I think nowadays, unfortunately, Instagram's an amazing thing because you get to see the world, but everyone just, you hear of every little bad thing nowadays. That's not really the case in the world. 99.9% of the people are good, and you're going to be fine. So.
Yeah, like I went to South America for the first time a few months ago, and my mom messaged me on Facebook every single morning while I was in Colombia.
That's funny. That's awesome. I remember my mom had a motto when I was like growing up, and I remember her saying, "No news is good news." I can remember her saying that. No news is good news.
Does that tie into when you guys got a random phone call in Switzerland and she probably assumed it was going to be bad news rather than you're getting closer to being on The Amazing Race?
Well, yeah. I don't even know if my mom knew. Like, I don't know if I even said anything. When Chris and I replied, I don't know what I think she was just like, I think she was like literally like, I don't know, like CBS is trying to get a hold of you guys. What's going on? So I probably explained to her that I was what I even applied for, and imagine at that time prior to a show's out, like no one had even a concept what it was. It was like, hey, yeah, we applied for this cool thing that we don't really know what it is, but it sounds awesome, right? So, but it was, we felt like it was big enough because I remember we cut our trip short. So,
yeah, you guys would have only been, the Survivor debuted at the end of May of 2000. So you would have had just less than a year into this boom of the reality TV genre that it's not like now where you have so much history, not just with the States, but now Canadian versions of everything, and Australia and all these other countries where everyone knows what the genre is now.
Oh yeah, completely different time. I'm glad I feel like blessed to be part of that time. I think there's pros and cons to both, but I like being one of the old school guys.
Yes, very old. In fact, you can now have the record on this podcast for the longest hiatus between your most recent Amazing Race appearance to being on this podcast. We had we had the Guidos. We had the
18 years.
Yeah, we had the Guidos as we used to only do one interview per year, and our very first interview was with the Guidos about 4 years ago, but they were on All Stars, so technically you would hold that
That's
record.
funny. All right. Well, at least I got one record going for me. That's nice.
And I guess that you probably wouldn't have thought about it at the time, but going to Brazil as a teenager was actually the start of your alliance with Tara Wil on the race.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I can remember, you make judgments so kind of quick because it's, I do remember us being on the plane, and I remember just having a conversation with them. And, originally it was Will who I was starting to befriend early on and on that plane ride. And I remember us just talking, not that a real alliance, I don't think you can't have some alliance that's going to last a whole season anyway. It just doesn't make sense in the Amazing Race. But back then you don't know. And you're just like, yeah. So I can remember Will and I having a very distinct conversation where I was like, listen, I'm going to help you in South America. They kept talking about Southeast Asia, Thailand, that if we ever get there, that's their, jam, and they know how to navigate it. So yeah, definitely that was the, conversation. But it was such a different time because like I remember writing down or maybe telling Tara Wil like some Brazil sayings, like muito rápido, like go really fast if you're in a cab. Like, whereas nowadays, the amount of people on this planet who speak English plus with like, it's just a different time. So, running around Brazil back then, your language barriers are definitely going to be a problem. Not that they aren't now, but definitely a different time.
Yeah, like a couple years ago, it was my first time outside of Canada or the States. I went to Western Europe and Cuba for 4 months, and I stayed with my cousins in Italy. Only the one daughter could speak a couple hundred words of English, and the rest was just sitting at a table, passing back and forth the Google Translate to one another to communicate.
So funny. Yeah. And I know about Google Translate. I've never actually used it, but yeah, it's funny. I can remember sitting at the dinner table with my host family who no one spoke English. No one spoke English. I think there's like 4 people in the whole city I lived in spoke English. So even my soccer team didn't speak up. My English teacher at high school didn't speak English. And so, yeah, I can remember just sitting there like a sitting duck and just being like, this is so awkward because you just have nothing to say. But I'll tell you the benefit of old school, new school for long-term travel. I don't think for weekends or, short-term, but Brazil, within 3 months, I was speaking Portuguese, like getting around, zero alternative. You start dreaming in Portuguese within like a month, 3 months, I was for sure getting around in it. And I remember like by the time I was leaving, like I could actually pick up a book and understand it. Not like I wouldn't be reading War and Peace, but like a magazine or like look at a newspaper and be like, oh, I could like actually read a little bit, and that's, no formal training, and the difference, I always use that example because I used to live in Germany, and like in Germany, because everyone spoke English better than, maybe I spoke English, coming from Boston, it was totally different. It was so hard to pick up the language because I'd speak, start speaking and try to speak a little German and they just speak English back to me. So there's something to that immersion that is awesome.
Doesn't it feel like, because I've gone through that similar experience too, but doesn't it feel like a bit of a fail when you try to speak the local language and then they just respond to you back in their language? It's like, oh, I guess I didn't try hard enough.
Yeah, well, the world, yeah, for sure. And I mean, I feel like if they know you're trying and you want to help, but if it's like, let's get to the point, I'm trying to, which bus am I supposed to take here? Yeah, I guess it all depends on the context, but yeah, definitely interesting. I wish, I always wish I picked, my language skills were spread out over so many different, I took French in high school, lived in Brazil, which was Portuguese, then took German, like lived in Germany. It's like, I should have just stuck with Spanish and then tried to really like own that language. If there's anything I could go back and redo, that's what I would have done.
I understand that Chris spoke Spanish, right?
I mean, I think he did all right in Spanish in high school. I mean, yeah, I guess he's maybe a little bit.
Just un poco?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know how fluent he was. I don't want to. Chris is really smart, so he probably was fluent by the time he was in high school, just taking a class. So who knows?
Just wanted it to be a secret weapon, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
He had the rest of South America covered, and you had Brazil covered.
Yeah, exactly.
And Now that we've brought up Will, I have to ask, what's the best Will story that you have? There hasn't really been a guy like him before since since your season.
That's a great question. I mean, here's the thing. Will, I haven't seen him since, I mean, I think I saw him like twice after race, so I haven't seen him in 20 years, right? I'd love to see him and, say what's up. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It felt like, but remember, I'm sure you've gotten this from other people, but like the amount of pressure and the amount of intenseness that's happening while you're racing will change people. And sometimes you'll see the best of you, and maybe you're even yourself. You'll see the best of yourself. You'll see the worst of yourself. I think it pulls out like the strongest emotions just because of the competitive nature and constant moving, just the environment you can't replicate. You can't buy that type of experience. It's amazing races. It's amazing. It really is. So I'm saying that because I want to preface, I don't want to knock Will. Like, Will's a good guy and I'm sure he, but definitely for me, while I was on the show, we definitely had it out for each other at one point because he was just like, he almost seemed like bipolar, but I think he was more in this, I think he was super competitive. So I think that nature came out, and then add in, pissing Chris and I off a lot, and add that causing me to, I'm like, okay, maybe I will, start dabbling in Tara, and then, add all those variables and make anyone go crazy. So, I don't want to knock him, but yeah, I'm trying to think of like the best story. Best story of Will.
Perhaps once we get into other moments during the season, there'll probably be a connection made.
I mean, I think everything. I mean, the good thing is like everything you see on television is like the highlights of the highlights. So anything that happened, he was just a super competitive. Will cut any relationship at any point in time, which which is certain people's strategy out there. So I have no grudges.
It would be amazing if you held a grudge after 16 years. Just come into this podcast and just blast him as much as possible.
Just lay it on, Will. Yeah.
And I know you said that you've only spoken to Will a couple times in the past, 16 years now, but I have a feeling you've probably talked to Tara a bit more than twice over the past 16 years.
Well, Tara and I dated after the show, for sure. We were full on dating. I'd say for me, I mean, my gut would be like 3 or 6 months maybe after the show. And then not, I'm trying to remember, we had a reunion party like 8 years ago, 5 years ago, I don't know what it was, but it was a 10-year anniversary of Amazing Race, and CBS put on this awesome party down in Miami.
Oh, wow.
And that brought a lot of people back. And, I think she was there. I want to say she was there. And that's where we really caught up. Yeah. The more I'm thinking about it, she was definitely there, and we caught up a lot there. So, but she, I don't know if she's married, but I know she has a kid, and I believe she's still out here because I think my sister lives in the area she used to live. So, but no, I mean, definitely we're talking at least like 5 or 10 years since I've seen her or talked to her.
Wow. Are the Gutsy Grannies still alive? Are they still kicking?
I see them on Facebook. So I think they're doing great. I don't know. It's funny. It's like as time goes on, I mean, if you want, I can tell you who I do keep in touch with. It's hard for the people I don't, so I don't know exactly what's up with the Gutsy Grannies. I mean, it would be so much fun to have another, have a reunion of our, season, getting back together, talking about it. But you mentioned Danny. Danny and I keep in touch. So if I'm in Miami, I just saw him in Miami, like within the last 2 or 3 months. I had a layover in Miami, and so we always, if he's in LA or if I'm down in Miami, we'll keep in touch. Shola and Dwayne are out here, and so I'm not like we keep in touch. Every once in a while on social media, I think we've tried to meet up for drinks here, but have been unsuccessful. But
do you play volleyball against Shola and Dwayne? Does he have to have a rolled over ankle?
No, I know. You know what's funny? You know who we used to play? This is like when the Game Show Network I think, bought the second rights to Amazing Race. When they started airing Amazing Race, they did a party. And I remember going to that party and that's where it actually became like, do you remember Dennis Frentos,
Season
Colin
5?
Gwynn? Yeah, Colin Gwynn. Colin, I just saw Colin come. Colin, so there's some people from other seasons that you just, connect with and then become. So Colin, we all met there. We were all volleyball players. So we used to play. I mean, if you rewind like 6 years ago, maybe, we used to oh man, and those are my guys. We used to play volleyball like all the time. And then maybe even a longer time period ago. But, Colin, I was just at Colin and Christie's in Austin, Texas, like a couple weeks ago. So I still keep in touch with them.
So you would be familiar with who's on season 31, I'm going to take a guess.
I have no idea what's out there, what's not. So I'm going to plead the fifth on all of that.
We have talked the who's being cast has been very openly publicized.
Okay. Well, yeah, and that's, yeah. So I keep calling Colin and I became really good friends when they lived out here in LA. They lived in Santa Monica as well. And then Eric Sanchez, we became friends a lot because of volleyball too. And then he's back in Florida, I believe. So, so it's funny how like there's an old school people, Burton Roberts from Survivor has been my business partner for, 12 plus years now. With almost everything we've done. So like there's a Survivor, Amazing Race, Big Brother, mix.
Yeah, you could see you, Burton, and Jeff Schroeder are fairly tight.
Yeah, well, and there's different ones because, Burton and I created the series Around the World for free, right? Where one person has to make it around the world with no money using the help of the online audience. And that first season, was done with CBS. The news, like CBS This Morning, followed it around. And then CBS Interactive Digital came on board and started, bought the franchise, and we did 2 more seasons. So season 2 was, and this is a lot, tell me if you don't want a story about Jeff Schroeder, but that's where I met Jeff. Cause they were we were trying to cast the person to do the second season. We were going to put Parvati in it, but CBS, we were just getting pressure for it to be a guy from somewhere. I don't know where. And then, so I remember sitting around, I'd talked to so many Survivor friends, and Ethan's a good friend. I still keep in touch with Ethan a lot. He's a Massachusetts guy, and we're still good buddies. Colby Donaldson from Star. So this is some old school guys we're all good buddies. So anyway, I'm talking to different people, and no one was really right, but they wanted it to be a male and they wanted to be from CBS, right? So that was kind of like my mandate to cast this person. And so, and I'm going to say her name, but I don't think but anyway, she's in marketing. She's the head of marketing at CBS, VP of marketing at CBS. And O'Grady is a good friend. And I asked her, and I was like, and she goes, and she brings up the name Jeff Schroeder. And she's like, do you know who this guy is from Big Brother? I think you'd really like him. I think he's perfect for the show. And I remember I got off the call with Ann. I called another friend of mine who was at casting at CBS for a while, Erica Shea, who was on on Amazing Race as well. She turned into casting at this point in time. I remember calling her up being like, what do you think? Ann just told me about Jeff Schroeder. She's like, oh my gosh, he's awesome. I love him. So I remember we flew Jeff out, and Jeff, and then, as soon as we met Jeff, Jeff and I are like brothers. Love the guy. And as soon as, we had dinner one night, and that was it. And then he went on that, and that turned into a lot. Jeff and I did, and with Burton, because Burton and I ran this production company, Around the World Productions, and Jeff, as soon as he worked on Around the World, man, we worked on a lot of shows together, because he's such good talent to work with, so much fun. So we were just coming up with ideas and pitching them to CBS Interactive or Travel Channel, what have you, and did a lot. So, Jeff's in Denver now hosting a morning show. So, but I saw him in Denver not too long ago, within the last 6 months. But yeah, so Jeff and I are good friends.
Did you ever see Jeff on The Amazing Race? Because I think he did the second season of Around the World for free right after his stint on The Amazing Race, if I remember the chronology correctly.
I think you're right. I should know this. I don't remember exactly. I remember seeing a couple episodes, and now every time I think of Jeff and Amazing Race, all I hear is him self-deprecating himself and being like how bad he did on the show or something like that. So, I do remember Mom, but I don't remember a lot of the details.
So we talked to Kelly, who made it to the final 3 of season 7. We've talked to Tyler of BJ and Tyler. We've talked to Eric Sanchez, and a lot of them said that they pretty much quit watching The Amazing Race shortly after they were on. And I know you were saying the same thing, that you've been haven't been watching for quite a few years. How long has it been, like 10 years or so since you've watched The Amazing Race?
Embarrassingly, probably yes. I mean, here's the thing. It's like any show, right? Like if I get into it early enough, then I'll like be hooked on it. But yeah, it's been some time that I've like been glued to my, in my television. But I will be saying, I will be watching this next season. I will be watching this next season.
It'd be pretty tough to avoid it, I guess, with all of the old schoolness that's being incorporated into it.
Yeah. As soon as I had heard that Colin and Christy were going to be on it. Like that was, oh my God, I'll watch this because, yeah. So I think if there's someone that like brings that I'm close with, for sure, like if Bert went on the show or Jeff went on the show, anyone like that went on the show, for sure you'd be watching, So, but I still always rave about it, and I know it's one of the best shows on television. There's no question about it. I don't watch that much TV, so that's half my problem.
Yeah, you don't, but based on all the stories and how you're brought up, you don't strike me as a guy who could just be sitting on a couch in front of a TV or playing video games too much.
Well, it's funny. I mean, I've been in Amazing Race changed my life in the sense that it got me in entertainment, and I've been in television or content business ever since. But yeah, I'm not yeah, it's funny. I don't sit around and watch a lot of stuff, which I should, but I don't.
Maybe another 10 years it'll be a TV show of Alex sitting on a couch catching up on 3 decades worth of television.
Well, I do remember. I will say that I have had multiple racers say to me, "Have you watched? You got to watch this show's so much different. Like there's so many more like little rules and different ways to compete against. There's just a lot different. I mean, we had a roadblock and a detour, right? And the first person to get there, that was it, And there's a lot more gamesmanship I know now. So
there's definitely that hyper awareness that it's a TV show, the cheesy sound effects being thrown in. And I actually wrote down notes that for your guys' season, really the first 2 seasons, you guys were already understood the structure of season 1 to the point that after your guys' season, they had to start changing up some rules. Specifically, one that I think of is that you guys it was highly telegraphed when non-eliminations were happening from how it was presented on TV.
Honestly, I gotta tell you, there's a couple points, because here's the thing. I mean, Chris and I should have been eliminated a couple times, right? We hit non-elims, right? And I remember, like, I didn't know. Like, I think about it, like, one time, I'm trying to remember where we were, but it was a non-elimination, like, and I was like so bewildered, like, oh my gosh, like, we lucked out. There was another time in Thailand. I remember Thailand, it was such a short, it was just really short. Like, I mean, you got off it, you did 1 or 2 things. I remember just kind of like being so lackadaisical of going to the finish line, and it's like you're last, but it's a non-elimination leg. And I was just like, wait, so I remember being like really surprised by like the fact that we're already at the finish, we're already at this, pit stop. And then I remember in Hawaii, we were down to the final 3, but they said, we had to check in just like anything else. And I remember them being like, but it's not an elimination leg. And I was like, oh, so it's only 3 teams. I thought they always want the 3 teams to go to the end. So anyway, yeah, I mean, I know the way the production needs to stay ahead of the gamesmanship of the show and the sheer grit of like that, what contestants will do to figure out hacks around certain things. You got to give all the credit in the world to, Bertram and police that are, behind the show, making it, changing it up and making it different and making it tougher.
Would you have been, like, ever since I think season 15, they started separating the teams from each other, where at the end of the pit stop, at the end of each leg, the teams don't get to hang around each other anymore. They all get sequestered from each other until the next leg starts. Do you think you and Tara would have been as close on the race if it wasn't for having those sequestered periods to get to know everybody?
And I wonder why they do that. Do you know why? I'm curious.
Well, in season 13, there was an incident where one racer accused another racer of pushing their sports bra off a window ledge in one of the hotel rooms and accusing them of trying to sabotage him, but there wasn't any production crew around to confirm whether that was actually true. And then we've heard other stories where production wants to always be able to capture any interaction between the teams so that nothing is hidden from them. They always can tell the story. And I think another component we've heard too is that it helps with stuff like U-turns and yields now, or I guess just U-turns now, where it helps teams be able to U-turn each other and stuff without having that tight personal connection and feel any guilt or emotional connection to the racer that they're doing it to.
Wow. For sure. Yeah. I mean, to me, that's where a lot of the relationship stuff is you're bonding, because you're just sitting around, hanging out, talking, so it's a great question. Honestly, I might, yeah, of course. There's those times where those are the only times you got to relax are on those. What I remember really was like the 36-hour pit stops and long rides. Besides that, because like the 12-hour pit stops, and I don't even know if they do 36-hour pit stops anymore, but the 12-hour pit stops, it's like by the time you are going to go through your interviews, your post-interview from that race, get a shower, get some food, get some sleep, you're back at it. So the 12 hours, I don't remember hanging around that much. But I do, 36 hours is when you could, let loose a little bit.
Yeah, nowadays they do the entire filming in 20 days. I think, if I recall correctly, your guys' season took about 5 weeks to film from leg 1 to the end.
Yeah, if I'm correct, it was 28 days. Yep.
That is a lot longer. Not every pit stop seemed like it was a fun, jovial time for everybody. If I remember correctly, there was a bit too much alcohol going around at one of the pit stops.
Yeah, that was South Africa. Well, they put us in a winery. What do you think is going to happen?
The most stressful environment possible for TV, and they put you guys in a winery.
Yeah, I do remember it. I remember that, because I felt bad because I remember Chris and I think they were like, production was, I think everyone, a couple glasses of wine or whatever, but like, I remember Chris and I think we went down to found a basement and got like a case of wine. So I remember us starting to light, we were young kids, we were lighting it up a little bit. And, I can remember being upstairs. A lot of us were in one room, maybe all of us. I remember some people were swearing, and I remember the preachers, I just remember them getting so mad, and he got so mad up there and just started kind of screaming at everyone. And I just remember feeling so bad. I was like, oh man, cause you just, you got young kids, you got older people, you just have a lot of different people all kind of sharing the space. Yeah, I remember, definitely. I mean, listen, they are casting A-type individuals, and so you take a bunch of A-type individuals and give them some alcohol. There's going to be some fun involved.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think just how great of a story it is to tell, that you got drunk on the Amazing Race and got into a fight with a pastor. That's not a story you hear too often.
Yeah, well, and I remember, and I don't remember getting in a fight. I just remember swearing was going on, and that was what it was. And ironically, I remember my father, that was the worst. He hated swearing. But I just remember, him, I can remember him snapping at whatever conversations was going on. And I just remember feeling really, really bad. I was like, oh man. So yeah, that was fun. That was fun. I don't mean that exact experience, but everything about it was fun. So I remember there was just shenanigans going on.
Would that happen at the next Amazing Race finale party? Would you guys try to replicate that?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I hope we make it to 20, and so I hope CBS does another fun party for us. But that, yeah, it's always. But you know what's funny? I mean, we're a lot. I mean, I'm 41 now, and not to say I don't like to have a good time, but I'm just saying times are different. I mean, we were like 24 years old, and so 23 or 24, I can't remember. But like it was, so there's a new crop that I think will be, turn things up a little bit.
Yeah, like when last year I went to the Amazing Race 29 finale and I met Brennan and I went up to him I got smuggled into.
Oh, Brennan.
Brennan,
Brennan is a good friend of mine. Yeah, he lives on the west side. I see Brennan almost every weekend.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he lives right down the street from me.
So you could just like open up a window and just shout at him, and he would be able to hear you pretty much.
Well, I don't know about that. He lives in Santa Monica. I live down in the peninsula in Marina Del Rey. LA. Anyway, he just got an apartment right near mine because he wanted to check out kind of Venice Beach area for the summertime. But yeah, Brendan and Rob, because Rob's still in LA, and so those guys. It's funny. They were like two of the first people I met when I came to LA, and still. I'm still good friends with Rob too, and those two guys are really tight. But because Brendan and I, we play in a bocce ball league on Tuesdays out on the beach. We're playing games, surfing, messing around. Yeah, I see Brendan all the time.
A bocce ball league. You guys definitely are in your 40s then.
Well, it's a really fun. It's a beach bocce ball league.
Oh, beach.
And it's all just to change up and imagine it's like 100-person team, 100 teams in this league. It's the funnest Tuesday night summer activity league to be part of. Yeah, you're in the heart of Venice Beach playing bocce ball for basically about 30 or 40 minutes before everyone goes to this bar. But it's a really fun league.
Wow, that does sound like a lot of fun.
And ironically, sadly, Brennan won it last year. Brennan won it with one of our buddies, Scotty. He won the whole thing in the tournament. The tournament's next weekend. So next weekend's like. Everyone, it's a big party on the beach, and it's like single elimination. All the teams are in the league. It's a really funny thing. But there's a lot of skill. I'm telling you, there's a lot of skill that goes into that sport. It's tough.
Especially, I've only played bocce ball on regular grass, and I assume once you get sand involved on the beach, I assume the physics gets a bit
totally different game. Yeah, completely different game. Yeah.
And when Brennan won the last league, was Phil Kogan there? Did he unveil a mat and say, 100 bocce ball teams, 700 throws? Yeah. Brennan, congratulations. You are the winner of Venice Beach bocce ball.
No, Phil Kogan. No, Phil Kogan. Phil did play. We did this was fun. After we did it, we needed to do more of this. Ethan was putting on was part of a soccer tournament that's happening in LA. And there was a reality division within this massive weekend kind of tournament, 6-on-6 soccer. And Phil came and played on that. Swain and I played on that. It was probably 10 racers, that played on that team. And proudly we won the reality division, knocking off the Bachelor, Survivor, and Big Brother. So
that's definitely how close does that come to winning the Amazing Race?
Nowhere close, but it's always I don't know what happened the year before, but I heard that Amazing Race team was really bad. So I got some calls. Ethan was like, "You got to play," and so a couple of us joined in there and try to show Amazing Race some love in the game of soccer.
Next time you gotta maybe the Gutsy Grannies, were they like the clutch performers of your team?
They weren't there. They were not. They did not make the squad. Well, no, I shouldn't say that. I don't mean that. I didn't mean they didn't make the squad. I just said they weren't there. So they could have played. If the Gutsy Grannies come out, they're on the squad.
Yes, they would have. They just wanted to give everyone else a chance in the tryouts.
Exactly.
Awesome. Let's see. Oh yeah, you guys. We don't really see this penalty really come up too much anymore. But I guess at one point you and Chris got penalized for speeding during one of the self-drive legs?
Yeah, that was in Africa. I think in Namibia. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I got to tell you, I wasn't sure about that. I don't know. Yeah, we definitely got penalized. I remember kind of being like frustrated and bewildered and like not understanding it, you know? So, I mean, nothing against production, but I was just like, I just don't remember. I just don't remember like consciously speeding, you know, not to say that we weren't, you know, but I remember getting that penalty.
Maybe like Chris has tunnel vision while driving on the road and you're looking down at the map and both of you guys maybe miss the sign for what the speed limit is.
Very well could have happened. Very well.
We've had about 10 seasons ago, there was a team that got eliminated on the first leg. They were in plain sight of Phil, and for whatever reason, seeing Phil didn't register to them, and they just walked away from Phil within, like, I'd say about 50 yards of him, and just walked away, and then another team checked in during that time, and they got eliminated just because of how extreme that tunnel vision was.
Yeah, that can happen for sure.
We noticed that I think Blake, near the start of the season, was asking people for money, and I know since then everyone's been forbidden to do so. Do you know if you or any other teams ask locals for money while on the race?
I don't even remember. I mean, maybe that. I don't remember Blake doing that. Did he do that? Wow.
I think he wrote to the sign,
Smart.
like, I'm on a CBS show, and just had the pen and paper out and asking people for donations.
Wow. Yeah, smart. I don't remember doing it. I don't remember, honestly, for me, because like I don't remember money being an issue. Like ever. Like it's not like we were spending money like ever frivolously, obviously not, but I just don't remember money being like, oh, if I don't, you know, have, and I probably should have been savvy like that and saving every penny and probably trying to scrounge for more money. I just don't remember being an issue. Like I just, you know, we had cash, you know, when we would need it for something, you know, whether that be a cab or a bite to eat or what have you.
And you've been around the world for free, so money really isn't.
I'm a minimalist. I don't need anything. Yeah.
Since you were on the race, they've experimented with 3 different types of penalties for coming in last place. When you guys were on, you guys just always got off scot-free. But which non-elimination penalty would you fear most? The first one they did after you guys were on was they take away both your bags and all the money that you have with you. The second penalty they did was if you weren't first place on the following leg, you had to wait 30 minutes until you could check in. And now the penalty that they've settled on for the past 15 seasons is you perform an extra task that takes about 10 minutes to do. Which one would be the toughest, you think, to overcome?
The toughest one to overcome?
Yes.
I have to think about that. What are they again? They're
bags and money taken away. They call it the film mugging.
Yeah.
The second one is if you're not first on the next leg, you have to wait 30 minutes until Phil checks you in. And the third one is you have to perform an extra task that roughly takes 10, 15 minutes to do.
Well, I think if you don't get in first place, wait in 30 minutes. I mean, because that's going to be the biggest time hindrance. That's where my gut would go. You know, I wouldn't care about the best. I mean, like if I need to go 30 days with the same clothes on my back on race, I'd be fine with that. You know,
Chris has been using the same jeans for 15 years.
Yeah, Chris is already. You know what I mean? He's only got one pair anyway. So what's he? He's got nothing to change into.
What was the biggest strategy? I know you guys talked about how just going with your gut instinct is the best thing you can do on the race, but what was the best, or rather, what was a set strategy or various strategies that you guys would use throughout the race?
Honestly, it's funny. It's like, and like, I wish I had some like brilliant answer here. Like, we didn't have a strategy. Like, we were just going out, like, go as fast as you can. That was our strategy, you know? And, but I think overall, and I think this is how I approach life, which is kind of interesting. It's like, I don't know if this is the right strategy. It's like, obviously Chris and I made mistakes, right? We just never got down about our mistakes, and we just never gave up, and we never stopped moving as fast as we could. And so I would say maybe that was a strategy, or more that's just our personalities and just the way we approached it. I think, at 41 would probably be a little bit more methodical in our moves, but you go, but it's like that subtle consciousness speaks to you. Like when you're in a cab, like, does this guy know what we're going or not? Am I going in the right direction or not? Right. And is this the fastest way? And so, I would say that Chris and I weren't we weren't sitting around strategizing, we might be thinking about like, oh, how long. Yeah, but even that, it was like when the race is on, you're just, at least for us, we're just moving as fast as we could. And I think overall, but this wasn't a strategy, it was our personalities. Like you'd hear other teams bicker. That's not Chris and I's, we played sports together. We grew up together. We've been through goods and bads and tough times together. So any, struggles that we dealt with, we just, ran them over like a, no pun intended, speed bump. Like, we're just cool. All right. One of us screws up, whatever, move on. Like, never like knocking each other, never being like, whatever. You might be like encouraging or pushing each other, but never, being negative towards ourselves. I think just in general, although you might not see it, I think in general, Chris and I like are super positive people, and, we got this, and don't, when things aren't going right, don't lose your marbles, just keep a steady hand and, don't give up.
A lot of our listeners probably wouldn't remember this, but CBS had you guys labeled as bouncers. Were you aware that that's like the archetype that they were trying to slot you guys in prior to the race? Because I'm sure after hearing all the stories so far, that couldn't be more contrast to your guys' backgrounds.
I think there was like a moment, here's what happened. Chris and I 9/11 happened during like literally we were on casting, like in the final rounds of casting in Los Angeles when 9/11 happened. Okay. And I say that because what I'm about to say in a second. So after they pushed that race back, right? It was supposed to go whenever we were supposed to leave, but it kept getting pushed back because I think whether production was rerouting us or reanalyzing, can the show happen under that? America and the world didn't know what was happening, right? So when we went back to Boston, we would just keep hearing, hey, things are good. They still like you, X, Y, and Z. And eventually when they launched the first season, we had been called that day. I remember getting a call. You guys about to watch. You guys are on the next one. But the date for it to go kept getting pushed. And we were in Boston, and I went to school in Florida. Chris went to school in South Carolina. Neither one of us wanted to stay in Boston for a winter. So we didn't really know when this thing was going to happen. And so I say all that because Chris and I had left. I was like, I'm going to go back down to Florida where I went to school. Chris was like, hey, cool, I'll come with you. Let's go kick it on the beach and go get some jobs until we figure out if this thing's happening or not. Honestly, that is literally what we did. So we packed our bags up because it was like September, or, winter was slowly rolling into Boston, and we were just want to live someplace warmer and cooler. So we went back down to Jackson Beach. And so, we were taking like just random jobs because we couldn't settle into anything because we were waiting for this, awesome opportunity. So was at one point in time that like Chris and I like bounce at something? Yeah, probably. But like, I'm not, Chris is bigger than me, but we were taking odd jobs, like bartending here, maybe bouncing here, doing a door here, doing whatever we could just to like, pay our rent out at the beach, until the show happened. So is it accurate? Probably for one of our jobs, but we were just in a transitional stage of life, working any kind of odd job to make money on the show, and Chris is like a double engineering degree. I was a market analyst and a business degree. So it wasn't like we were like lifelong bouncers. We were just 23-year-old kids trying to, have a job while we waited for it to happen.
That just happens to be the job you have right before you go on the show.
Yeah, totally.
We've heard some stories about some very interesting overnight accommodations that teams have had, whether it be in waiting for tasks to open up or at pit stops. What was the most interesting accommodation that you guys had while on the race?
Oh, junk boats, Hong Kong Harbor.
Oh, you slept in those junk boats.
Yeah. Actually, no, we didn't. They shuttled us. That's right. They shuttled us back to a hotel there. We stayed in tents in the middle of Cooper PD, which is in the middle of the outback. That was the coolest for sure. And we stayed in tents in Alaska. We stayed in so many cool places. Yeah, we stayed in tents in Alaska.
Was that better than the office building that I think you had to stay during the Around the World for free? You were stuck overnight in a somebody's office while traveling, and then you were also caught up in a bunch of Kenyan protests for a day.
Yeah, my accommodations on Around the World were much more interesting than Amazing. Well, I shouldn't say that.
Like, Amazing Race were very dramatic and amazing, right? Around the World for Free is such a different animal that, one day you're sleeping in a mansion, the next day you're sleeping on the streets, and everything in between. I mean, I lived with monks for weeks yeah, a totally different experience. Yeah.
No monks hanging around on the Amazing Race as much, I guess, except maybe Thailand.
Yeah, we had monks in Thailand for sure.
Did you ever have any camera or audio duos with you who may have slowed you down or were a hindrance to your race overall?
No, I don't think so. You're not really allowed back in those days to develop they did a great job of, I mean, every different leg of the race, there was a different cameraman, sound person. So you're never able to, develop that much of a relationship. And they're pretty strict about ever having personal conversations, obviously to, create any kind of imbalance there. So, nothing I can remember of. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I feel like there might have been a couple scenarios where, mics or something go down, but, and then the other, I don't know if anyone's ever talked to you about this, but the only other equalizer, other thing that was out of your control is that if you came out of the airport, I can't remember if I talked about this or not, but when you come out of the airport, you might have your bags through and everything, but the camera guys have to, they have carnets and they have to get their stuff through, different countries. So sometimes that would happen. Sometimes you'd be ready to go, but your camera and sound guy would not be ready to go. And that definitely would cause some frustration, but easy for me to be all nice about all this because I won. So
yeah, there's no bitterness on your end.
There's no bitterness on my end. That's right. Yeah, that's for sure.
Did you ever have much interaction with Deidre and Hillary during their limited run on the race?
Yeah, I think everyone. I mean, I think you become a family throughout this whole experience, whether you were the first team off or the last, team standing. So. Yeah, it was, it was limited, but it was, I definitely remember them. If I saw them right now, I'd be like, what's up? So, I can't remember any kind of major thing during the race with them, but I remember, their story was awesome and both of them were super, super nice.
So if they walked by you, at Venice Beach, you'd recognize them and they wouldn't be shunned by you whatsoever?
Never. No, I wouldn't shun anybody. I'm a nice, Pisces. I get along with everyone. But no, I would love to see them. I feel like they were at the 10-year reunion. I saw them there, but I can't remember.
Oh yeah. During the second elimination with Hope and Norman, Blake and Paige, there were stories that came out that I guess Blake and Paige's car had broken down and that they were last and they would have been eliminated, but then production gave them time credit. Are you able to confirm that story at all?
It's funny. I remember there was definitely some controversy. I don't know. Did they get a time credit? Because I don't think it was they checked in last. I don't think it was a situation of they checked in last and then they found out, oh, sorry, no, a team that checked in before them, I think Hope and Norman last. I think, if I'm correct, but I might not. It wasn't part of me, and I wasn't with them during this whole experience. I think it might have come down to they got another car or they got another vehicle. I think there was some type of situation there, and I honestly don't know enough of the details to be able to really comment on it. But I do remember a little bit of controversy being talked about.
And did they change, because starting next season they changed it to where no team ever gets a time credit if their car breaks down. Did they wait till the end of the season to change that rule, or did they say at the end of the second leg, okay, guys, we make this exception once, but not again for the rest of the season?
Honestly, I don't know. Like, I don't remember. I mean, I got penalized for driving too fast. I remember the twins, they got, stuck in the desert with their car. I'm even trying to remember some other scenarios. I think there was some other scenarios with vehicles. I always thought if your vehicle breaks down, sorry, that's the luck of life, right? So I don't remember anything majorly of like, oh, we're going to adjust your time. The only part I could speak about was that I supposedly drove too fast in Namibia and they penalized us for that. Besides that, I don't remember or wasn't part of anyone, any time credits one way or the other. I don't remember that being a big play in our season.
And is it true that the sheep outnumber the people in New Zealand?
I believe that is a statistic, but, I'm not Wikipedia, so I don't know. Don't quote me on that.
And did you get to go by Phil Kogan's house during your time there?
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the pit stops. I believe that was one of the pit stops. I think it was. If it wasn't, we definitely were there. I mean, there was a really funny challenge. Probably one of the funniest things was Chris trying to herd these sheep. I remember dying laughing watching this. And that was on Phil Kogan's farm. So that was really cool getting to see where he grew up. And I knew that was extremely special for him. His dad was around, and yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, then you fast forward 11 seasons later, and they're using his dad as an official pit stop greeter.
Yeah, it's awesome.
In your guys' final leg of the season, you guys were raced before a time where they did any sort of final memory challenge or final task. Do you think you and Chris would have been the type to prepare for that if you guys knew something like that was coming?
I mean, here's the thing. Back then, we didn't know what to prepare for, so we couldn't prepare, right? And so I think also in general, our age, our little bit of cockiness, we probably wouldn't have. We probably would just been like, we got this. Now, if I race the race again at 41, I definitely would be probably more thoughtful and, be preparing in a lot different ways. So, hard to say when you haven't been put up to that. But I know that if I was going into it again, I would be preparing as much as possible. Over preparing probably for the race. Whereas at 22 or 23, whatever age I was running around, it was, we got this.
Yeah, just rely on your youth.
Yeah.
Everyone had a good time picking on Itchy and Scratchy a bit in the cast. Do you have any fun stories about those two guys that we didn't really get to see on TV?
It's funny because you're asking me stuff from so long ago that they were really funny. I think I had more fun watching. I don't remember so much from the race because a lot of times, you're only seeing your own race when you're racing. At least during my season, you're alone a lot. You will come into certain challenges, of course, and see other teams, and there's pit stops. But, my memories are Chris and I tackling certain challenges or dealing with certain issues or problems. What I do remember after the race, there was a lot of us here in Los Angeles, or I'd say maybe half, the third to half the teams were already here. So we would do these viewing parties. And I remember them there, and I just remember they were so funny how they would just I remember them at one point in time there was this, I can't remember what episode it was, but they had these one-liner jokes about every single team, and I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember totally, but I remember but at point they got to describing Chris and I, they were like, oh, Chris and Alex, these are just dumb jocks running around, they don't know what to do without beer bongs and. I don't know, girls in vacation, whatever they said. And so I just remember dying laughing watching the show with them, being like, I had no idea how funny you guys are because they were so funny. So I think that's probably my biggest memory of those guys. And it's been a long time. I feel like I haven't seen those guys in a long, long time. So I hope they're doing well.
Yeah, one of them, I can't remember if it was Itchy or Scratchy, but one of them ended up being a story editor for season 5 of The Amazing Race, where he was a production member in a one-off, just for a one-off, and he's never appeared in the credits for The Amazing Race before or since.
Yeah, I do remember that as well. I remember him getting a job on one of the shows. I remember hearing that.
Were you guys aware of the strategies that Oswald and Danny were using throughout the race? They were kind of like unorthodox, almost like the Leota Machitas of the Amazing Race, where they came up with their own strategy of finding this woman named Fern and just charming her into taking them to every route marker around Thailand. Were you guys aware that they were doing this? Or
Not at the time.
Not
at the time. Like I'm saying, like I learned so much about the show or what other teams were doing when I was watching it. You know, like I don't in the moment. You might hear stories, but your mind, at least for me, my mind was so focused and I was so revved up for those like 28 days that, my mind I didn't care what anyone else was doing, and so, like I say, I do it. Like I was saying before, I've stayed good friends with Danny and Oswald, and so I do remember watching. I just remember watching the show, being like, "Oh man, there was a lot of people doing stuff that I probably should have been doing." And yeah, they're really smart. So,
would Chris ever go out shopping for new jeans with Oswald and Danny? Would he let them update his wardrobe after 16 years?
I think that'd be awkward, but maybe. I doubt it. I don't know.
Yeah, now all male teams typically in the Amazing Race now they wear leggings instead of jeans.
I don't even know what those are. What are
those? They're masculine leggings. They're more sporty. They're more
I got you.
Even only in your guys' early seasons did they wear jeans, and now over time everyone even thinks right down to each shirt and pair of pants that they pack as to what is best for the race.
Yeah, what's the best for the race? That makes a lot of sense. No, Chris and I probably could have been a little bit more fashion forward, but I don't think either one of us are to this day, but definitely not back then.
Did you guys have I know you guys played a lot of the race just by the seat of your pants throughout the season, but when did you guys have any thought beforehand as to when to take the fast forward? Because it seems like you guys had a really good strategy where you waited to take the fast forward when there was a team ahead of you, but it was a team that had already taken the fast forward. Then you told all of the teams behind you that you were going to go for it.
Yeah, so what was the strategy behind that?
Yeah, like was that a set strategy or was that something you guys just did unintentionally?
No, I mean I think there was in the moment strategy is happening all the time. And I mean, Chris and I are pretty quick on our feet in the sense of thinking out. So there was nothing like deep thought strategy. Everything is like, imagine living in the present in a hyper-focused world. And we're almost like weirdly, in my opinion, like time slows down a little bit. So in those moments, it's like, okay, yeah, this is a great set. We're not, Chris and I aren't sitting around discussing strategy. It's like, oh man, this would be a good idea. They think we're going this way. We need to go that way. Or we need to do this decision because it's going to help us in this way. So we would make pretty quick decisions and strategy on the fly very quickly and stick with it, whether it helped us or hurt us. So,
was going for that fast forward one of the biggest contributors to your guys' victory by the end of the season?
That's a great question. I think that obviously helped us, right, in that case. But I like I said, I think overall, I think the reason why what I tell people when they ask me, like, what's the difference of, like, winning it or what was your advantage you had? Like I say, I really, truly think that Chris and I we never looked backwards. We never second guessed ourselves. We just went for it. Right. And that's honestly like how I attack life. So it's just a natural way. Like I'll make a mistake 2 or 3 times, but I'll just keep moving on until it's right. And so I think overall our success was because we probably didn't overthink too much and just kept going. And there was no point in time ever whatsoever that we weren't going as fast as we could and with an ounce of like, we were never discouraged, never like we're going to lose, never like we're going to give up. No, that was never like an entrance in never entered our mind.
Yeah, it's always thinking that you're always in it, no matter what happens during the race.
Correct. Yeah.
Were you guys aware? Did you guys get any similar talks that Mary and Peach did when they were in South Africa?
No.
No locals saying that you were going to be killed going into that one neighborhood with the Epsom salt?
No one ever. We weren't. I don't know. Chris and I probably wouldn't be worried about those scenarios anyway.
And then especially knowing, we're competing on a show that you feel pretty invincible. I always felt like I was playing a video game. So no one ever said anything that like rattled our cages. So no, we never had a scenario like that.
And were you guys aware that Mary and Peach were intentionally not checking into the pit stop during the Hong Kong leg because they knew they were last and just wanted to have dinner beforehand and get a good meal in them and just take a nice leisurely stroll onto the Chinese junk before being eliminated?
No, like you learn about all that stuff after the fact, right? So when that happened again at one point in New Zealand. They said Danny and Oswald, they thought they were so far behind us that they gave up and just said, all right, we're gonna spin off here. And meanwhile we were like neck and neck. So no, I never, like a lot of this stuff, at least for me, didn't know about it until when I'm watching it like with the viewers. So you're learning tons of information, tons of like little sub storylines. Just like the regular viewers are.
And that's crazy because for, people that win the season, you assume that they're aware of everything else that's going on. But I guess it's a lot different from Survivor where like everyone is so independent throughout the race that, you're watching it just like everyone else is at home or for 10/11ths of it, I guess.
For sure. And especially when you think about our season was just, the race is much different now than it used to be. Right? I mean, the teams are bunched together. They're close together. There's a lot more interaction between them during the race. And so there's maybe from what the viewer sees, because they're going to focus on these like main anchor points of the roadblock and the detour. But besides those points, you might be, for sure going to be on planes. But there's a lot of times that you might see a team, but you don't know what the team's going through. Chris and I were racing our own race the whole time. Yes, there was some drama with like Tara Wil and all these other pieces, but overall, like 90% of the time, I'm not, you never have time. You're not sitting around during a pit stop. At least we're every team going through their whole storyline, right, of exactly what happened. You might hear a couple, highlights, but that's it. So no, yeah.
How bad did you feel then as a viewer watching Shola and Dwayne get into probably in 30 seasons, or even in the international version, so in close to 50 seasons of Amazing Race, just how much bad luck they had in their limited run for two guys where people thought that they were going to do really well?
Yeah. I felt bad for them, I mean, there was points where obviously in Namibia, they saved us, because, Chris and I would have been last then, if they didn't get stuck in the desert, right? So there's a couple points, but yeah, they definitely, but I mean, that's, at the end of the day, yeah, there's sometimes everyone's going to get bad luck. No, I guarantee you there's no racer in history that's gone through that race and never had dealt a bad hand. It's going to happen. It 100% is going to happen. It's just a matter of, hopefully it's not such a deadly one where you get kicked out.
Or get stuck in the middle of the Namibian desert, or have a taxi driver drive over your ankle repeatedly.
That, for sure. Yeah, those guys, yeah.
In your guys' final leg, did you guys know that there was going to be that chance to outrun Tara Wil to the pit stop? Were you banking on Tara's asthma to kick in, and then Will not being the best sprinter compared to you two? Take us through that whole finish there.
That finish? Finish was crazy. I mean, I still think that goes as one of the craziest. I think we're still the closest race in history.
Yeah, closest American-wise, but season 2 or 3 of Latino America's version was even closer, where it was just like 5 or 6 yards separated the winner from the runner-ups.
Okay, but for American version, okay,
yes,
no
doubt.
So I mean, it was a crazy. I mean, if you think about it, any 3 of those teams could have won. All great racers all around, and yeah, I mean, when we landed in San Francisco, it was on, and I mean, I was still worried, to be honest. Well,
Paige and Blake, because when they left, I don't think after they left the airport, and they left the airport first, I don't think I ever saw them again. And so, but where I was, I mean, Tara and Will and Chris and I mean, we were leapfrogging each other. And at 1 second, we think we're out. 1 second, all of a sudden, we see them again. Then we think we're in front. We got it. Then they pass us. I mean, you could have cut the pressure with a knife. I mean, it was so intense. So intense. So yeah, it was a crazy finale. And I remember down on those piers, like, I mean, we ran forever. I mean, we were just guessing. I mean, we were running while guessing while people are pointing us in the right direction. It was like really the act of God that, that final race that we won. But of course, you're never going to know. I was not thinking, oh my gosh, like I was never preparing. I will tell you a funny story though. I was never expecting us to like, oh wow, it's going to be, a half a mile run at the end. And yeah, we're going to be up against them. No, I did know that while I was in the middle of it, right? Like when we were right behind them and then this like driver got in front of us, they gained a little bit of time on us.
Yeah, you described it as a soccer mom car?
Yeah, well, I just remember someone pulling in front and they were going so slow. And I'm like, jeez. And so it's like, I mean, I was just dying. And we got out and at first glance when I saw them running, and I'm pretty sure at this point it's every 5 seconds you think it's the finish line at that point in time, but I'm like, this is it. I did not think they were catchable. Like, I mean, that's how far they were in front of us. Like, I was just like, oh my gosh. And Chris and I just kicked it into gear. And if it wasn't for that hill, I don't think we maybe would have caught them. I mean, the hill killed them. And that's where we were able to gain our ground. So yeah, it's crazy. And, I always tell this story, and leading up to the race, I can't remember if I was telling the story earlier on in the podcast or not, but I used to go and like I run the pier back and forth. I used to live in Jacksonville Beach. Did I tell this story?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, so when I lived in Jacksonville, Florida, prior to the race, I was waiting for the whole race to happen, and I would run to the pier and run back every day. It's a few miles. And on my way back, I don't know why. Amazing Race is not about racing. It's not about running, but I would like imagine the team in front of me, like 50 yards, 100 yards in front of me. That's the team. And I would, for whatever reason, I'd run past them, right? I'd like start sprinting past them. And I did that for like, a couple months, like every single day. And it's really strange that thought was coming into my head. I didn't plan it, wasn't trying to manifest it, wasn't doing anything special, but that thought came in my head every single run. And then ironically, while I'm on the Amazing Race at the finish line, exact same thing happened. I'm looking down the race. I got a team 50 yards in front of me and I got to pass them. So yeah, crazy.
Yeah, be funnier though if it was like the gutsy grannies in front of you at the finish line, and I bet you your image wasn't picturing outrunning the gutsy grannies on the way to Phil Kogan at the end of a race.
Yeah, definitely.
And I imagine that whole finish and stepping onto the mat and winning the whole thing, probably one of the most memorable moments of your life.
Yeah, I mean, what was awesome, I mean, it's surreal at the moment. You almost can't believe it. It wasn't about the money, although that was awesome. It was just about, such a massive ordeal when you talk about from the beginning of being a casting and then 9/11 happened and then not knowing if the show's going to happen, then to being, getting on the show and then actually competing on the show. And so there you are winning the whole thing. Such a sense of accomplishment. I remember Chris and I were just like on cloud nine. I remember being in the hotel that night and the Patriots won the Super Bowl. There was a lot of like being from Boston. So it was an awesome, awesome day. And yeah, and to me, it changed my whole life. I mean, it dramatically did. I mean, I was an international business major in college, worked in Boston, corporate guy. And, the whole time I was racing around the world, I was like, you're not allowed to talk to producers, and I could never stop talking to producers. So I was like, wait a second, this is your job. This is what you do. And so that gave a spark in me to, go on and do travel adventure shows. And, so it was a very defining moment in my life for sure.
So 16 years since you've been in the cubicle, in other words.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I read that you've been to roughly, after Amazing Race, around the world for free and all of your other adventures, that now you've been to 55 countries altogether, approximately? Yeah.
Probably there a little bit more, yeah. Yeah, I've been very blessed to travel the world, that's for sure.
What would be number 56 on the list? What would be next? What's that one country where you're like, how have I not been there yet?
I think Indonesia and Fiji. I think those are two up there. They have everything I want. I love surfing, yoga, Fiji up mountains. Yeah, so I'd say Fiji overall. It's amazing. I haven't been there yet. It's pretty much has everything that I like to do when it comes to travel.
In Fiji, are you going to do like you did in Dominica and try to get another waterfall named after you?
That would be nice. That would be nice. I think you got to be on a show. I'd have to be doing a show to get that type of clout, But, yeah.
Or name the one in Fiji when you're just going around, name it after Chris or something.
Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Chris needs a waterfall for sure. It's a good idea.
Awesome. Anything else that you want our listeners to know about your time on the race or anything in general?
No, I think that's it. I hope everyone, I hope everybody keeps watching Amazing Race. It was an awesome journey. And I hope there's another 30 seasons down the road.
Are you surprised that people still want to hear from you 16 years after your victory?
Obviously, times change and things move on. There's a lot of teams now, right? So there's a lot more present people. But I think that there's something about the old school days. There's different, a different experience, a different race, different all around. So I think it's like any of these shows, the beginning people, there's something really special about, these are iconic shows now, right? I mean, really iconic shows that have, standed the test of time. So to be able to be part of that first generation of, such an amazing experience is, it's awesome.
Yeah, you might not be aware of this too, but a couple of years ago here in Canada, because Canada's way crazier for Amazing Race and Survivor and Big Brother than a lot of countries are, but we had our own full season of a cartoon that was just a season-long parody of The Amazing Race.
Really?
Yeah, just with their own cartoon characters, yeah.
That's funny. That's funny.
So we have a couple of really ridiculous rapid-fire questions that Michael and I have somehow asked over the series of interviews we've had. The first one is, who is your favorite boy band member of NSYNC and or the Backstreet Boys?
I can't even think of one of their names. Like, I don't know. Mark Wahlberg?
Well, we'll go with Mark Wahlberg.
We'll go with Mark Wahlberg. He's a legend.
Marky Mark.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll have him on the Amazing Race now that they've had Jonathan Knight from New Kids on the Block.
Maybe, yeah.
Who would win in a fight, a baboon or a badger?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm going to go with the badger.
A badger? We had a huge streak of people saying baboon, and now this is the second week in a row where people have been picking badger.
Yeah, badgers, they got low center of gravity. I feel like they'll,
So you're picturing more of like a wrestling match?
Yeah, I just feel like the badger is like overall scrappier. Yeah.
Just that Iranian badger just ready to take the baboon down.
If it's an Iranian badger, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
And I think that is, I don't know if we have any other rapid fire questions. We usually get more and more embarrassed each week that we ask them. Yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. It's been a lot of fun. Went through a lot of content from things that happened a very long time ago.
Awesome. Yeah, sounds good. It's been fun.